One thing I didn't tell you about, I am a landlord. I live in downtown Toronto. I have a wife and 2 kids. We live over in the Wallace Emerson area.
Okay.
I've been here for about 10 years. I've been doing home inspection for 2. I'm a member of OHI. I'm a NIBI certified home inspector, which means that not only was I certified, but I'm certified annually. So I have to be recertified on an ongoing basis.
Where are your rentals?
I just have one. I have a triplex in Hamilton.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm
What
coming
area?
up on my mortgage renewal, and so it's good. What do I want to say? It's Main Gauge, if you know the area.
Yeah, I know Hamilton all the way down.
Yeah. So if you know the new stadium,
Yep.
it's pretty close to there.
Okay.
It's within a short walk.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good.
When the Paralympics, or not the Paralympics, the Pan American Games were going on, we went down, we parked in my driveway, said, "Hey, tenants, do you mind?" And we parked in the driveway and walked over to the games.
Nice.
So the soccer, that is.
Right.
Yeah. So no, it's been good to me. So do you have any properties in Hamilton?
No, I'm in Barrie.
You're in Barrie. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a single family in Barrie.
So you live in Barrie?
No, I live in Toronto.
Oh, you
I
live.
used to live up there,
Okay.
and I bought a townhouse up there as an investment.
Okay.
And now I've never lived in it.
Okay.
And I had a student house in Peterborough
Okay.
for 5 years.
Oh, so
But
spread out a little bit.
yeah, they were spread out. I only picked up Peterborough because my nephew was going to school there.
Yeah.
So I only had it 5 years, and he did not engage in the process, which became a very aggravating experience.
Yeah.
So we got rid of it after 5 years.
Yeah. You never know what your family's gonna do.
Yeah, and it was bad.
That's how I got into, like, a home inspector isn't in the real estate business. Like, we're in the real estate sector, but we're not. You know what I mean? I'm not an agent.
Yeah.
But how I kind of got into this line of work was my parents did the same thing when I went to school,
Yeah.
and I managed that property for
Yeah.
them. And then when we moved here, we bought a home with not a basement, but a
unit.
first floor unit, so it could subsidize our
Sure.
income. So I knew when I made my career change, I used to work in the film business,
Okay.
that I wanted to work in real estate in some capacity.
Yeah.
So home inspection made sense to me.
Yeah, as the buying, the agent-wise does to me.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna pick up a few more, and Hamilton's on the list now.
Yeah.
Has been for a while, so we'll see where we end up, whether I go continue with Barrie or.
Yeah. If you did get one in Hamilton, definitely get a home inspection. Whether you get it from me or somebody else,
Yeah.
definitely get one, because I'll tell you, the properties there, they have just been unkept. Like they have just been left to rot.
They've been left, because that's
Uh-huh.
the thing about Hamilton I'm not
Yeah.
too thrilled about.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of unkept.
Yeah, the one I visited yesterday, it had earlier this week, it had major structural damage,
Yeah.
like in the basement. And it's just like one of those simple things where you're not taking care of your driveway, you're just letting the downspout go there.
Yeah.
And the water just pressed into the wall, was like this
Oh.
in the basement. Yeah, and so the buyers, they said, we just can that last 5 years? And I'm
Maybe.
like, well, yeah, and because we don't want to pay anything else after we pay for this house, we don't
Yeah.
pay. And I'm like, if
That's
you don't want to
bad.
pay for anything else except for this house,
Don't buy this house.
well, I don't say that. I say, know that you cannot wait 5 years for this.
Yeah.
This is something you got to take care of.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm going to talk about. What is a second suite? What are the hoops you have to jump through to make it legal, that is. The basic process for making it legal. Why to make it legal. The basic requirements and other considerations. Some of this stuff I might fly over because it is a rather long talk. But if I am going too fast, just let me know. I imagine that some of the hoops, the basic process might be stuff you already know.
Yeah.
Most people want me to get to the basic requirements. Those are like, how high does the ceiling have to be? How big does the door have to be? That stuff is what people really like. So, a second suite goes by many names. Basement, apartment, in-law suite, nanny suite, we've heard all these things. In the bylaw, it's referred to as a secondary suite, okay? If you're looking in Toronto, but every bylaw is different throughout Ontario. But it is not a duplex, that is something else.
Mhm.
Okay, a secondary suite is a suite in addition to the main unit, not a duplex. So according to Landlord Self-Help Center, this is how it's defined. Second suites are self-contained residential units, which include a private kitchen, bathroom, sleeping area, and a separate entrance. If you don't have those 4 things, you don't have a second suite, okay? And generally, these are permitted in single detached homes, semi-detached homes, and row houses in Toronto. Some places don't allow it in row houses, okay? So you really do have to check the zoning to find out. And these secondary suites aren't only basement apartments, they can be found in garages or laneway homes. Here's a very popular one that gets a lot of press in Toronto, this one that's quite beautiful for a garage, for a laneway. For a laneway house, yeah.
Yeah, it is quite something.
So I mentioned these are the 5 main areas that you have to make it a second suite. However, in certain areas, they may require other things like a living room or a dining room.
Really?
Yeah, so in Toronto, that's how the Landlord Self-Help Center classifies it. In other areas, I think more suburban areas, they have higher standards. They also require more square footage. So it is on a municipality by municipality basis.
Right.
So you're the only one here, but there's only one thing that makes a suite legal. Do you know what it is?
Gonna say probably the approval from the city.
Yeah. The documentation.
Yeah.
So it's a certificate, a license, a registration document, a closed building permit. I called the Landlord Self-Help Center and the city recently because I knew I was giving this talk, and I said, what do you call that document? And neither of them could answer it. They just say, it's a document, we call it a city document or a city certificate. It doesn't have a name. It's not a license, in Toronto at least, but it's a document. And so, but whatever it is, get it in writing. Different jurisdictions will have different names for it. In addition to the document from the city, you'll also have to have a documentation in order to get the document from the city, you need the certificate from the fire department, and you need to get the ESA, whatever they call it. I don't think they call it a certificate.
Safety.
The Electrical Safety Authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to get, I forget what they call their document. It's not called a certificate, it's called something else. I think it's called like some kind of letter, like a clearance letter or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know the exact name of it.
Yeah.
This is good. I've got somebody who's doing a suite in the near future, so this is good refreshing for me.
Yeah. So these are the code requirements you have to, all the different code requirements you have to follow. So Ontario Building Code, Fire Code, ESA, Electrical Safety Authority, and the municipal property standards and bylaws. So those are things like zoning and variances and parking. Parking's a big one outside of Toronto. So Toronto really doesn't have parking requirements, but basically everywhere outside of downtown Toronto, so that might include North York, they do have parking requirements. The frustrating thing for us as investors and landlords is that there's no single governing body. So if you haven't done it before, or you don't have someone guiding you who is knowledgeable, this can lead to costly duplicate work. You know? So I do have a recommendation for a consulting firm at the end of this, if you're at all interested. So here's this step-by-step that I printed out. This comes from a website that the Landlord Self-Help Center created, and the document is called Creating a Second Suite. You can find it right on that website right there, secondsuite.info. First and foremost, you need to figure out if you're a landlord, if you want to be a landlord, then you have to find out if second suites are even permitted in your area. So you can check the zoning bylaws. There's a map in Toronto that helps you do that I'll show you a little bit later. You can prepare your building, then you need to prepare your building plan. And this is the order they put it in, but I actually think these all go together, okay? So you have to prepare your building plans to apply for your building permit. And this is their way, Building Division Services for Homeowners. This is their way of saying, we, the city, are not going to help you with these services.
Right.
You find a different building division service to help you. And that is who will inform you if these are right.
Right.
They will give you some time if you go into their office or get them on the phone, but they're not going to spend hours and hours with you. So
Right.
you need to have your information together. So this is their nice way of saying, hire a consulting firm if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Okay? And the reason is because you want to have your building permit issued quickly, you know? Because usually people, they have carrying costs of owning a property and they want to get it done. So once you get your building permit, there's going to be compliance issues, almost always. I've done this with my property, and even, you know, like for building a deck, like they want you to change something. They want the post rearranged to a different area or whatever. So
There's always
going,
something.
there's always going to be something. So you're going to get the building permit, you're going to apply for the building permit, they're going to ask you to make changes, you're going to make changes, you're going to get back to them. So that's another thing, if you're hiring a consulting firm or just an engineer, make sure that their budget that they provide you has money allotted for that revision. I've done it where I had the deck designed by an engineer, and then we need to change it. Well, he wants another couple $100 to do the changes and reissue it.
Right.
So make sure that he has that budgeted in. My guy actually warned me that that was what was going to happen, so he had it budgeted in.
Right.
But others don't necessarily have
Sure.
the same experience. So then there's all this stuff. So once you get your actual building permit, you can start work. Oh, come on in if you are interested. Once you start work on your second suite, you'll have building inspections at key stages. Okay, this will end with fire department inspection. Then you'll have to schedule your electrical safety inspection with the ESA. Then they remind you your insurance will change. You need to be insured differently. So contact your insurance broker, get upgraded. They will want to see your policy before the fire department and the buildings department sign off. Okay? Then you will have a license or registration fee likely with your application. And then once you receive that piece of paper we talked about, then you're off to running your second suite business. Now this is put together in about a 50-page document. That is a nice step-by-step
Nice
guide.
little visual for it.
Yeah. So if you do want something a little more robust, that is provided by them. So after all that, why do you want to do this? You know. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want to make it legal. You know, safety and health of the occupants. You know, avoid neighbor complaints. I had to kick a guy out because I had a guy in my basement. The basement wasn't legal. The top three were legal, but the basement wasn't. Neighbors complained. In fact, it was the tenants who complained because they got mad at me. And
Really?
I had to kick them out. Yeah. So,
Why did they complain?
it's a long story, but I recommend this to anybody who's buying a home as a rental property, is don't do any work for the first year. Just sit on it and then do work after a year. And that way you get to know your neighbors, because I've had neighbors complain to me. I've had fines because of my lawn being too long and all this stuff,
Sure.
you know what I mean? And just wait it out a year, because after a year people forget about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you can build that deck. But if you just move in and you start building, you start doing things, you start adding tenants, you start adding tenants, people, they already have their backup because they don't know who this new neighbor is.
Yeah.
And in my case, the tenants who were leaving, basically the person who sold it to me, I don't know why they did this, but because they didn't do it for all the tenants. I inherited 2 tenants. I didn't inherit other 2. They essentially kicked 2 out. They said, they lied to them unbeknownst to me, saying that I'm moving in, that's why you have to kick out. Or no, the new owner is moving in, that's why you have to leave.
Right.
So I take over, not knowing any of this.
Yeah.
I don't move in, I put a new tenant in there.
Yeah.
I just thought, hey, they're leaving, you know what I mean? And then I found out from other tenants later that they were quite upset that they got evicted.
Sure.
Or they didn't get evicted, but they got asked to leave, and for an untrue reason. And so that was their way of getting back at the landlord.
Sure.
But
The perceived landlord,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is actually a different person.
because we're all in cahoots together.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what happened there. But you could avoid fines and penalties. Thankfully, I didn't. They were understanding. You know, first time they'll give you a break. Second time they're like, "Hey, we have this documented. You've been doing this
Sure.
multiple times." There's insurance requirements. So as I mentioned, you need to get insured to get the suite. So if you break that rule, then you're not insured. High quality rentals equal high quality tenants. So if you abide by these rules, like you bring it up to standard, you'll get better tenants.
Sure.
Full disclosure at end of sale will ultimately yield a higher price at sale and reduce your overall liability. So this is something, maybe you're not in the game long enough, but seller and agent do warrant for status of basement apartment. Usually it says, we do not.
Yes.
We do not.
Yes.
So that
Usually
way,
does say do not.
you can say that right in. I actually saw one real bold one yesterday. I did a fourplex yesterday, and I happened to look at the listing because the agent sent it to me, and I wanted to get an idea of this cookie cutter thing I was stepping into, and it actually said something like seller. It didn't just say seller does not warrant the status. It said something like buyer is responsible for
to verify.
To verify.
Yeah, to confirm and verify all
Yeah.
measurements and.
Yeah, but it was even. I want to go back and look at it because it was quite bold. It was kind of like basically saying this isn't legit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was more than what you're
Buyer
saying.
beware.
Because
That's basically what it's
Yeah,
saying.
I've seen the one that you're talking about because
Yeah.
that's a pretty standard boilerplate. It was even bolder than that. It was basically like seller should confirm acceptability with
Oh, wow.
legal status of the home or something like
Yeah,
that. You
so,
know?
which is a red, big flag
Yeah.
if you catch it.
Yeah, it was definitely not legal.
Yeah,
No way.
yeah.
So, so now that we've gone through that, like I said, I kind of wanted to gloss over that. It seems like you gleaned a little bit, but here's the thing. The basic requirements are what people really like. So what do you need? So it needs to be 5 years old or older, first off, to have a second suite.
I didn't know that.
That is a totally arbitrary rule, but true. It's in the law. It's in,
Really?
Yep, it's in the law. It says
I
must be
did not
5
know
years
that.
old or older. It has to be a fully or semi-detached home. Townhouses are allowed under certain circumstances. In Toronto, often. Outside of Toronto, often not. Okay? So it has to be self-contained. We've already gone
Can
through
the
this.
separate entrance be a shared entrance? Like a back door of a house? That the main floor suite could use also, but not necessarily does use?
Well, I'll give you an example. My home has a back entrance at the back of the house.
Mhm.
One goes upstairs and one goes, it could be broken up into 3 units. So it has an interior stairwell. One door goes into the ground floor, one door goes into the second floor, and one door goes into the basement. So the back entrance, that's not the entrance. It's the entrance to the suite. So since each of those floors has a separate entrance, that's considered an entrance.
It's the entrance to the suite, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the entrance to the suite, not to the home. So it
Gotcha.
has a shared entrance to the home, but
A separate entrance to the
except
suite.
to the
I got
suite.
you.
Yeah. So you couldn't. On the flip side, I had a homeowner in Barrie ask me the same thing. They wanted to put one in the basement. Well, the interior stairwell didn't have a door.
Right.
So I said, well, if they're going to be accessing the home from the stairwell, you need to put a door at the bottom of the stairs. Otherwise, that's not considered a separate suite.
Right.
Yeah.
It's considered a guest in your home.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
They're considered a roommate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
That's right.
essentially.
it's considered still one home.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
We went over self-contained. The second suite must be smaller than the primary residence. That's across the board, but additional rules may apply. And they're different throughout different municipalities. In Toronto, it's pretty much just must be smaller. Other places like Mississauga, I think it's like 40% of the floor space. In other places like Brampton, it's like, must be a minimum of 750 square feet.
Oh, wow.
Whereas like in Toronto, it can only be like a maximum of 600 square feet.
Right.
So like they're like almost
They're all
total,
within
one
bounds.
couldn't be in the other district, you know?
Interesting.
So you gotta check what is allowed in your area. So this is a big one that's kind of random, but again, it's in the law. Facade cannot be significantly altered, okay? So these two are examples of not altering the home, okay?
Okay.
These are examples of altering the home. So this one, front door, it's not altering the facade, I mean, not the home, the facade, but you can see it has 5 mailboxes there.
Right.
So you go into that main entryway, there's probably 4 or 5 doors, maybe one at the back, you know what I mean? But the front door is by itself, whereas this one, 2 doors.
2 doors, you can clearly see
Yeah.
there's 2 suites, at least.
So that's a change of this facade that may be permitted with a variance, but that is not allowed just outright,
Right.
okay? Because I guess it changes the character of the neighborhood. This is another alternative, 1 door at the front, 1 door at the back. Door at the side, door at the back, that's fine, it doesn't change the front facade,
Sure.
okay? This is one that changes the facade because it's adding a stairway. Again, to me, it's not as, what do I want to say? As
Obvious.
visually off-putting as the stairwell, as the 2 doors, the stairwell down. But the idea is that you're changing the character of the neighborhood. You're turning it into less single family, more multi-unit.
Yeah.
You know. Although this, which I'll describe in a little bit, is a very good alternative for means of egress
Sure.
requirements, and I'll get into that in a second. This is actually a very good one. Many of these are terribly done and don't have proper railings or whatever.
Right.
But that one, these are all within the stone's throw house actually. So, but this is very well done. I wish I would have had a picture of the bad one that I could throw in, but that day there's a couple of ruffians sitting on the stoop, so I decided not to ask. Okay, so I told you that in City of Toronto, you really don't have parking requirements. They expect everybody to pay for on-street parking, an on-street parking permit. But in many areas, you'll actually have to, you're required to actually have parking on your property. So that means parking spots, either areas on your driveway or a garage somewhere on the property for the cars. This can be anywhere from 2 to 4 spaces, depending on the number of, and even higher than that, depending on the number of units. And tandem parking is not generally accepted. Okay, so this, you can see side by side, stacked on top of each other, that's not considered 2 parking spots.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's also size requirements. In this particular one, which I stole from somewhere online, they had to get a variance because this was like a ½ an inch or an inch short of their the driveway width requirements. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about legal non-conforming and what that means. If your home was, if before the 1995 legislation, in other words, if the home was built before 1995 and the suite meets fire safety requirements, it may be considered legal non-conforming, and therefore it may be easier to achieve legal status. Okay? So you're legal, you're non-conforming to the bylaw, but you're legal because your grandfather did it. Okay? And as the top one says, if you meet fire safety requirements. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, almost all building code and electrical code is not retroactive. Fire code can be retroactive, and oftentimes is. So if they say the ceiling height has to be a certain height, you don't have to change it. But if they say you need smoke alarms, you need to change that. If they say you need a certain means of egress, you need to change that.
Right.
See the difference? Okay. So, so additional requirements to be legal non-conforming are you would not have to bring the suite. This is kind of what I just said. you would not have to bring the suite up to date or up to code if the suite's use has not changed, okay? So like I said, if it's been in continued use since before 1995, you don't have to update it other than fire code. However,
So I got a question for you.
yeah,
Relative to this. So I've got a friend in a small little house in East York.
okay,
Currently, there was someone for the last 10 years living in the basement. They cohabitated. There are 2 kitchens, but there's not full cooking facilities downstairs. So they
Okay.
shared the main kitchen upstairs,
okay,
okay? This person has since moved out, but there is a separate bathroom, separate sleeping area, separate living area.
okay,
And it had its own door, okay?
Did it have a kitchen?
It did, but the person basically used the main kitchen upstairs.
Well, that doesn't matter. Did it have?
But it does have a kitchen, it has a fridge, it has no cooking abilities.
So
Beyond
it,
a microwave.
so it has a sink
Yep,
and a microwave and a refrigerator.
yes. And it's been like that for at least 10 years.
Does it have a?
Someone living in it.
So it doesn't have a fan?
Yes.
Does it has a fan, a hood fan for an oven, or for a range?
No,
No, it doesn't have that.
No,
It has
it's
a bath fan, but
it's a
not
bath fan, but not a,
not a fan for the kitchen.
right.
Okay.
So
I don't know if that would be considered.
it's basically a little bachelor suite in this little tiny bungalow in East York.
Yeah.
Now, this person has left, the cohabitation arrangements are different, and now this person wants to make this a rentable space.
Can they do it?
Can they do it?
Well, it's not. It hasn't
It's-
been. It hasn't been being used that way since 1995.
So the fact that it was in a cohabitating situation doesn't make it a,
Were they earning rent from that?
that person kicked in half of the expenses into the house.
Did they ever?
Not, so that was like towards the mortgage, but it was like food, everything, right? Because they were cohabitating.
Yeah. Well, let me
It
finish.
seems different.
Let me finish what I was going to
Yeah.
say, and then this hopefully will answer some questions, and if not, we'll discuss it.
Sure.
So like I said, what I was saying is, these are the rules. You don't have to bring it up to date. And this one, the onus is on the owner to prove the history of the suite's consistent use since 1995 or before through written documentation. So I would say that in your client's case, or your friends, or whatever it is, if it wasn't 1995 or before,
It was, yeah.
and they don't have written documentation, in other words, check stubs, copies of receipts issued to the renter for tax purposes, things like that, then a written lease, then chances are they don't have the proof.
Yeah,
They don't
so
have
there
it.
was no lease around it because
Yeah.
they lived in a weird, funky relationship.
Yeah.
That's
They were
the best
kinda-
way I can describe it.
Yeah, they were either roommates and not, or they were in a
I mean, it started in a
and not.
relationship and then it evolved into this, you live on the top half, I'll live on the bottom half, but they still
Uh-huh.
cohabitated, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, and now that's done and that
Yeah.
person has moved out. So now my friend is trying to make this a rentable suite.
Uh-huh, yeah. Is this in Toronto?
East York,
East York?
yeah.
I would say, from what I understand, and this is just two people talking,
Yeah, this
Not-
is
not
just
like-
casual
not
conversation.
the-
This is
not-
not a,
not the rules,
yeah.
but like, from what I understand, there's a housing dilemma in Toronto,
Mhm.
and there's millions of these suites, maybe not a
For sure.
million, but hundreds,
There's
hundreds,
hundreds,
thousands of these suites, and that the city is not going around like knocking on people's door, kicking
Yeah.
people out,
Yeah.
because they realize that if they did that, then they have a crisis on it, their housing crisis on their hands. So, so I'd say that it would probably be pretty safe for your friend to do it. That being said, here's the home inspector, and here's that, it's not illegal. You know what I mean?
All right,
So
it's
you should-
definitely not legal.
Yeah, you should know,
Yeah.
you should know about that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's smart enough to know to put an egress window in. She's
Yeah.
taking care of the things.
Yeah,
There is the appropriate fire break on the ceiling.
yeah, yeah.
She's making changes to make it
Mhm.
an appropriate space,
Yeah,
but it's not legal, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the,
yeah.
it is what it is. I
It's
guess.
it's kind of how I've approached it as a landlord. I was building a deck, and I felt like I was doing the right thing because the deck was falling apart. Essentially, it was a fire escape, and I needed to have a legitimate fire escape. They had like a 2-story staircase that didn't have a railing on one side. You know what I mean? Like that's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know? So I tore it down and built a new one, and then these tenants tattled on me, and so then the brakes get put on, and essentially they were not going to let me build this deck, and I called the guy, and I said the building permit officer, like the head of the building permit guy in Hamilton, said, hey, listen, like I've halfway started this, my tenants are complaining, they don't have a fire escape, like you're telling me I can't build this, and he said, listen, we can't issue this permit, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm following everything with the permit. I forget what the reason why he couldn't close the building permit was. I can't remember why he said he couldn't close the building permit. There was some kind of, like, oh no, I needed a variance. I needed a variance to build the deck. And I said, I'm not willing to go through this variance because what if I don't get it? You know what I mean? And he kind of, and I'm like, hey, I'm desperate. And he kind of confided in me, he's like, listen, just write me an email and tell me that you're not going to proceed, and leave it at that. And then I can close the building permit. So I just wrote, I said, hey, we're not doing this building permit anymore. We're not building this thing anymore. And then they closed the building, they closed the books, and then I built it anyway. So, or I completed it because it was already built.
Right.
And
It's
so
it's so stupid.
Yeah, I know.
The bureaucracy.
Yeah. But what I did is kind of like what your friend is doing, is that I built it to code. So it's like, it's got the proper distance from other homes.
Yeah.
Like, it had to be stupid where like, I have a platform this big, you can't put a platform this big. So the platform had to be this big. You know what I mean? So like, now there's just this like little narrow strip for the tenants to walk on. Even though the roof is this big, you can't make a platform all the way to the edge because it's encroaching on the neighbor's property. Even though that's the way it was before I tore the deck down, you know?
That's stupid.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't replace what you tore down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing that was, the reason being is, the thing that was built before was never legal to begin with. You know what I mean? They never got permission before. So that's the city's
And that's
argument.
the issue, yeah.
That's the city's argument.
Gotcha.
But what I said was, hey, I'm going to build it to code. If they ever come back and I do need to go for that variance, at least I know that I built it to code, and then I just need to go through the paperwork.
Yeah.
The main reason I didn't want to go through the variance was not only because of the time, but I think it was going to cost me like minimum like $1,250 or $1,500. You know what I mean? Like it was going to be a financial thing to it as well. But so I guess to your friend's point, you know, make sure you have the requirements. But if you don't got that piece of paper, it's not legal.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd say in your friend's case, that place, she doesn't have the documentation to have it be legal.
No, she wouldn't, because there was never a lease.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got the trail of financial payments.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, contributing to the mortgage, basically. It wasn't ever written up as a lease.
Is she in good standing with her friend?
I would say that would probably not be a good place to go right now.
Okay, because I was going to say they will accept affidavits, so they will accept written affidavits. So if she was on speaking terms with her friend, and she could say, hey, listen, so and so, I'm trying to have this be a rental. Could you please sign this document? I pre-prepared this document for you, and it says I verify that I lived here for so long and I paid this much rent and this was being used in this capacity, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like that. You know, but again, before 1995. So.
Yeah.
So these are basically building code requirements that I'm going to talk about next. These are probably ones that your friend will be interested in as well as you. So ceiling height has to be 6'5". So this is a little, I think this is 6'5" plus 3 inches. This is, or maybe it's 1 inch or 2. What is that? Like 6'5" would be, I think this is 7 feet. Would that be right? 7 feet? No, this is, I think this is 6'6". Would that be right? Because 72 is 6 feet.
72 is 6 feet?
Yeah, so this is 6'6", so this is almost 6'5".
Gotcha.
So that's as
1
high,
inch short.
so that's 1 inch lot higher,
Yes.
1 inch higher.
Yeah, so
So-
what you're holding is 1 inch,
1 inch higher.
1 inch higher, yes.
Higher than the ceiling, so the ceiling has to
Right.
be 1 inch higher than this. It can be 1 inch lower officially. This is something I don't quite understand. Well, this is ceiling height requirements. This isn't second suite requirements. So, 6'5", if your home is 5 years old or older. If it's new construction, it has to be 6'11". Basements can't be lower than 6'5".
And if it's not 6'5"?
If it's not 6'5",
Yeah.
well then it doesn't meet building code requirements. So you wouldn't get the building code to sign off on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So here's the other thing about ceilings is this is continuous space and this is not suspended or open joists.
Yeah.
So this is actual drywall.
closed.
Yeah. And if you have a bulkhead that comes down,
Mhm.
that takes away from your square footage on the
Yep.
floor. So I mentioned earlier that there's certain square footage requirements that you may have to meet. Well, if your ceiling comes down below a certain level and that subtracts from your square footage, you may lose your ability to be legal just by having your square footage taken away. Does that make sense?
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that impact you. The other thing is, say a bulkhead, somebody brought a duct down and it runs across the basement to the other side of the house, and so that bulkhead is between me and that door.
Yeah.
Well then, that can't happen because I could be running to get out of this fire and I could knock my head and I could like lay myself out. You
Right.
know what I mean? So that's not allowed. So if it's impeding like an exit path, then it's not allowed either. So basically, ducting has to run on the outside walls, essentially.
So
Yeah.
the only workaround of that would be that if within the area that is contained within, so this section, bulkhead, doors over here, if this section had an egress window, would that be okay?
If the
Does that, because it has an exit and it's unimpeded.
Well, I'll tell you this, I think it would be allowed, and this is the reason, because, hi there,
Hi, how you doing?
doing well.
Hey.
Hey, man.
Come on in, we're talking about second suites.
Oh, okay, I'm not gonna stay, but I just came to listen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you listen as much or as little as you like.
Yeah.
So we're talking about basic requirements for second suites right now, building code requirements. So ultimately, she just asked, I said, if there's a bulkhead that comes down below the required ceiling height, which is 6'5", so if it comes below that, that can't get in the way of an exit path. Otherwise, they'll ask you to remove it. So in the case of an egress window, if the egress window is below that ducting where that bulkhead is, I think it would be allowed, even though it doesn't follow this rule.
But it's in the other room that is blocked by the bulkhead.
Well, what I mean is that officially that would be blocking the path, but it's common sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And essentially, the building official can sign off on something and make amendments based on what they think
They
is,
are,
what they accept.
Sorry, what is HouseMaster?
HouseMaster is home inspection company.
I'm inspection.
Yeah, let me give you my card.
Oh.
And by the way, if you guys want to leave yours,
Right.
I'd be interested in staying in touch with each of you.
We're on the same team.
Okay, terrific. So, because they can basically, even though it doesn't follow the law to the T, they can override that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, on the same note, since we're talking about ceilings, the furnace room must be sealed with adequate fire separation, which means 2 sheets of drywall. That's 2 on the ceiling and 2 on the wall, 1 on each side of a wall cavity. So that being an example, 1 on each side.
Yep.
You know, but on the ceiling, 2 stacked on top of each other. That's a very common one where you go into a furnace room, and that's not, you don't see that. The exception is that if you don't do that, you can install a sprinkler system in its place. So if you want to keep it open for whatever reason, maybe there's things you want to access, maybe you feel like doing the drywall is going to be a pain because there's all kinds of pipes coming in and out of it, you can install a fire sprinkler system instead. So entrance doors have to be separate entrance to the suite. We mentioned that. They have to be this height and width, 32 inches by 78 high by 1 3/4 solid corridor. Okay, can't be a hollow corridor, has to be solid corridor. So metal or solid wood. Okay, or if not solid wood, you know, like has the proper burn rate. Has to be a hinged door. Okay, must swing. Sliding doors don't count. So the same example I was telling you about with the stairway that came down and didn't have the door at the bottom, she said, well, there's a sliding door at the bottom. Can't that be the entrance? And I said, that can be an exit, like that can be a means of egress, but that cannot be the main, that is not considered the entrance because entrances have to be swinging doors.
Why does it have to be self-closing?
Fire code. So because that is a safety device, it closes the door so the fire can't get out. Okay?
Yeah.
And it has to swing because a sliding door could possibly get lodged and not be able to be openable, something like that in the case of a fire. Okay? So here's a fun fact. I told you that a door that the ceiling height is 1 inch shorter than this, but the door is this. So the door is higher, the door requirement is higher than the ceiling height. So even though the ceiling has to be 6'5", it actually has to be higher, at least where the door is, to allow the door to swing. Because the door height can't change.
Right.
So that's interesting, because the door height is 6'6", and you're going to have clearance above and below.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, huh? Usually what happens is the door's on another level and then you walk down. So that you get, you know, it doesn't get in the way of the ceiling height. This is a door that, you know, that door's too small.
Right. That looks like the door in this unit.
Yeah. So windows of egress or egress windows. Okay. So here's a visual example of what that has to look like. So there have to be 4 square feet of openable area, okay? This does not count, okay? This maybe is 4 square feet total, but the slider is half of that, so that doesn't count. This, the maximum sill height can be no more than 40 inches high, okay? So something that a grown person could lift themselves out of.
Maximum sill height.
Yeah, no more than 40 inches, or a
You
step.
mean, so no more than 40 inches off the ground?
Yeah, so this would be too high. Okay? So it has to be like here. Because they have to be able to crawl out of it.
And so what are you saying, or step or ladder? Has to be, so it can be higher as long as there's a step or a ladder?
Is provided, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it has to be permanently provided in place. One thing that I've noticed, which is actually a really nice design, is sometimes when people do this, they actually lower the basement to create the ceiling height, and therefore you have to bench the house, so that bench becomes the step.
Right.
And that's a really kind of elegant way of doing it. So you have that step right there, it's permanently there, and then you can step up to that window. So the minimum sill height, by the way, is 36 inches. If you have it lower than that, then that's another fire code issue, but that's something different. Here's the big thing: has to be openable without the use of special tools or knowledge. So locking them, gating them, anything like that, you can't have special. Sorry, this got.
Sorry.
I don't know. It must be a different version of the software. I'm sorry about that. So I can read this to you. So here's a fun fact: where required, one egress window must be on the same level as a bedroom, not necessarily in the bedroom. So everybody thinks an egress window must be in the bedroom. Okay? But it just has to be
on the same level.
On the same level as a bedroom. So say you have a basement, or I don't know, or whatever. Say, a better example is, say you have, You
A top
have-
floor suite,
yeah, a top floor suite that has 2 levels,
sure,
and one of those levels doesn't have any bedrooms on it,
right,
doesn't even have an egress window,
okay.
okay?
So let me ask a question, 40-inch max sill height or step ladder, and then you say 36-inch minimum. Oh, sorry, so, okay, sorry. So it has to be at least 36 inches off the ground.
Has to be at least, yes,
Gotcha.
yes, exactly. If it gets below that, then it's
That
considered,
is too low.
it's considered a trip and fall. That's okay.
So, okay, opens without tools, yeah, that's okay.
The last one is the upper level minimum requirements are 40 inches by 22 inches.
Upper level minimum requirements?
So if the suite
Oh,
is
as in a second floor?
so if the suite is on a second floor, it goes from 4 feet to 6 feet. So this is the minimum. So also, I skimmed over this. It has to be 4 feet minimum, 4 foot square openable area, minimum dimension, no less than 15 inches.
Yeah.
Okay? So you couldn't have something like this.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like you can't have that.
you get a body through that, I get it.
Yeah, but you can have this, which, because that's 15 inches. But that's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
You don't see very many basement windows this way,
No.
okay? And it can have other dimensions, but just no less than 15. On the upper level, it has to be 40 by 22. So that's basically double this,
Yeah.
you know? So it's quite a large window, and that's openable area.
Sure.
That's openable area. So basically, essentially, a firefighter can get through it. So window wells, speaking more about windows, because your friend, do they have a window well?
Well, we have to put in we're gonna put an egress window in and a window well for her, so.
Okay. Well, this is something you want to know then, okay? So, there's conflicting info out there about window wells, okay? So, the Ontario Building Code says that you must have a 22-inch minimum in front of a window well, okay? Other sources say the minimum is 36 inches, so 3 feet rather than 2 feet, okay?
In front, okay.
In front, so you open the window, and basically the distance from the window to the back of the well is either 22 inches or 36 inches,
Okay.
okay?
And other sources.
So, but the OBC, the Ontario Building Code, also says outswinging windows cannot reduce the 22-inch minimum. So in other words, it can't reduce the 22-inch minimum that it says it needs. So remember that this window, say this is outswinging,
Yep.
it's an awning style, this minimum requirement is 15, okay?
Okay,
Needs to have 22, okay?
so
So
therefore it's
15
37 inches.
15 plus 22 equals 37. So basically, if I swing this out,
Okay,
then I still have 22 inches in front of that window to swing out. If it's a slider, then all I need is 22, according to Ontario Building Code.
but
Okay.
then you need a double-sized window to compensate for the fact that only half slides,
Correct.
right?
Correct, yeah.
So now you need,
Well, you could have one like this. So
A 30.
if this,
you need a 30 wide by,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because only half opens,
Yeah. So this one opens, and then you can crawl out here,
right?
and you have 22 inches.
And you have 22.
That's still rather small. Look at that.
That's small. You're not a big guy.
Yeah. It's pretty small. It's pretty small.